Martin, I'm losing my team. They're all gone. We'll do a short episode here. 6 things, 6 warning signs, 6 red flags of, hey, you might be losing your team. You might be losing your team, Martin, if you're the last to know about problems.
If you don't have the respect of your team, they're not going to do that.
You may be losing your team if your best people stop pushing back. People want to be heard, and if you're not hearing them out, it's a really easy way to make them feel like they don't matter, and they'll stop caring.
Your standards are reflected in what you tolerate.
You may be losing your team, Martin, if commitments slip without any explanation. It's a sign that you're not communicating effectively or frequently enough. You may be losing your team if you're managing tasks instead of leading people.
I love that one. And turn it over and to do it. And they grow like a weed. And you also find out a lot of times they have better ideas than you do.
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor.
Martin, I'm losing my team. They're all gone.
Well, I kind of knew that was going to happen, Khalil, but I didn't really know how to tell you, you know. I get real close to telling you, and then kind of just chicken out.
Not worth it. Oh, man.
Of all the people in the world that I don't think would lose their team, or at least not without getting rid of your team, you're probably that guy.
Wow. You know, I kind of been through this before. Not really, but somewhat. We we're not a contractor, but had a marketing agency and really pivoted away from that. And it caused a lot of, just a lot of change. We didn't need a lot of the functions that we were doing previously. And so people were asked to pivot and started to lose them.
Yeah.
Not necessarily intentionally, but I figured it would probably happen.
It's not a surprise, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a surprise.
It's like the national call to pivot when, if truck driving is going away because of autonomous vehicles, they said, well, go out and learn how to code. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe by the third generation, we'll be coders.
Well, no, they tell you to go code, and then all of a sudden AI comes out and codes better than you could. Yeah. now what do I do?
Yeah. Well, we go for universal income. That's the only answer.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever going to need to produce anything anymore. Yeah, golly, that's that old saying, life sucks and then you die.
That's
doesn't.
One of those sayings.
It doesn't. It just goes to show you. No.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's our topic for today?
Speaking of, we'll do a short episode here. 6 things, 6 warning signs, 6 red flags of, hey, you might be losing your team. So I'll kind of run through these with you. We can go through some examples, talk about some potential solutions, what it looks like, what it feels like, how to address it, et cetera, et cetera. So You might be losing your team, Martin, if you're the last to know about problems. I have a caveat to this. There are certain problems that you don't want to know about, because if you're in the weeds that much, then something's wrong. Like you're not truly delegating. You don't have people in good roles. You haven't systemized things. And I'm not saying you don't want to know about, like you want someone else handling them. You know what I mean? Now, if it's a really big problem, hey, we're going over budget on every job, or invoices aren't being sent out, or whatever. Like, yeah, you got to know about those, and you don't want to be the last one to know. But small things like, someone was late to the office. Okay.
You don't need to know about that.
Yeah, you don't need to know about that. So I think kind of the example we're going for here is like homeowner calls, pissed off, someone no-showed for the 3rd day in a row, and project manager or superintendent never told you about it. Or when you find out that, like I said earlier, you're going $10,000 over budget when you're doing the final invoice, and it's too late at that point. Like, you haven't communicated to the customer, all that kind of stuff. So, what do you think about this?
Well, absolutely. And finding that dividing line between what's relevant that and what isn't is a great point. And that kind of takes A players to use their judgment. Yeah. But especially it's true of bad things. I remember one of the companies we sold one of our companies to, but one of the things they did was drill oil wells. And their metaphor was, I do not want to be the last one to know we drilled a dry hole. Tell me. I don't want to find out, 2 weeks later. As soon as you know, I want to know. And yeah, if you don't have the respect of your team, they're not going to do that, because it puts them at risk. Murder the messenger kind of deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they have to
absolutely.
trust you.
Yeah. And again, like you said, if you do have good A players in there that take ownership and responsibility for certain functions or roles, they would care about it as much as you. And hopefully, obviously, they're never really going to care as much as you unless you give them the incentive. They would have a very high level of care about whether things are going correctly or not. Okay. So what can you do about it?
Well, it's the thing that I did in that example. I just told people I don't want to be the last to know, right? And we have to use judgment. And if you have regular meetings like you do in the morning, you don't, you can do something like tell me 5 good things and 5 bad things. Well, I don't want to emphasize bad things, but you could call it should I know, things I need to know, things that are going to affect, and then encourage people to tell you about it and don't kill them for telling you about it. That's one of the big things.
Absolutely.
They just need to have a culture of people who learn what's a relevant amount of information, what's the relevant importance of information, and they need to report over that.
I think the first thing you have to do is you have to ask yourself, why am I the last to know about the problems? Are they scared to come to me? Are they worried? Do they not care? Point. You got to figure out what the problem is, and then you can get to a solution. But I think most of the time, what happens, it's either they don't care, they haven't been trained to care, they don't even realize that it's that big of a deal, whatever it is, or there's a fear mindset of if boss finds out, I'm out, And so in order to do those things, in order to address those things, you have to, one, show that when people bring mistakes forward and problems forward, they're not going to get killed, right? Kill the messenger. That you're going to work through it with them, right? Obviously, if it happens 20 times in a row, everybody can recognize that. They want the person out too because they cause too many problems, right? But you got to be able to hey, this is great. Now that you said this, we can address it. We can fix it, right? The other thing, if they don't care, it's either that you have a bad person or you haven't emphasized enough how important something is. And so you've got to find a way to show that, hey, these problems make a big deal. You got to show them how it ties into the performance of the business and to the longevity of the business, the reputation of the business, et cetera, et cetera.
My father-in-law, after he got out of the Air Force, was a machinist. He worked for New Holland, the ag equipment company.
That's hilarious.
And he made, it was. They thought they owned the company. People did.
Wait, sorry, I want to clarify this. Your family owned New Holland?
No.
Okay.
But some people thought so.
Okay.
And I used it to my advantage, but that's not the point here. His name was not Holland. It was Adi. But he worked as a machinist, and he made a gear.
Okay.
About a 12-inch. And anyway, so I went out to see him, and they let him take me in a tour of the plant. So we're walking through a combine plant, and we get to this one place, and he just stops in his track. And they had the side of the thing off, and he pointed over. He goes, "That's my gear. That's where my gear goes." He had never seen what its purpose was. He was just, hey, he's a great guy. Yeah. But he's just making gears and putting them in a crate, and they go somewhere. But anyway, he was thrilled to see where his gear went. And so sometimes that's part of what you do is what you're doing is not just digging a hole. Mm-hmm. You're digging a hole for a pillar so we can put a beam on it and build a house or whatever it is. That's why the pillar, but people understand where they fit in the process and that every step in the process is important. Mm-hmm. And if that's not true, get rid of the step because if you don't need it, it's waste.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as we go through these, what we're going to recognize, what you just demonstrated and the solutions we just talked about, that is leadership. Yeah. And you're losing your team if you're not leading your team. And so the solution's always going to be leadership. And leadership is making hard decisions. Leadership is coaching and guiding people through situations. and showing them that you care. You lead with your time, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're having these problems, it's probably because you're not giving it the time and attention that it needs, and you're not really truly leading. And that, honestly, I don't blame you if you're in that position. I truly don't, because business is hard, especially if other things are going on in your personal life. It is very hard to lead because you just want people to do their job. I get it. But at a certain level, if you're going to be a business owner, you have to be in the business of leading people. And that's hard. So just know that. I'm not saying that this is easy. We may give you some simple solutions. It's going to be difficult. It's going to come at a cost. You're going to have to sacrifice time and energy and capacity and even money. But leading is what really solves these problems. Okay, so let's go to the second one. You may be losing your team if your best people stop pushing back, number 2. So, example, your foreman, your lead carpenter, your lead team lead, whatever it is, used to tell you that, hey, schedule's not looking realistic, boss. Like, we really need to adjust the scope of work, or we need to adjust the schedule, or our bid is way too low. There's no way we're going to stay on budget. But now he just shrugs and says, you're the boss. Basically stops caring, right? Yeah. Stops identifying the issues and bring them to your attention.
What's the cause of that? Somebody's lost interest in things. And it may be that they are distracted. They've lost interest. They're no longer engaged or thrilled by their job. Can be something like that. But it can also be perceived that what they say to you doesn't matter to you. And one way around that literally is whenever you're having meetings or you ask, what am I missing? Tell me. Show that you value their opinion and that you're willing to hear what they have to say. And not always, but frequently, the people that are closer to the work really do have some constructive ideas. Sometimes they don't. They don't understand.
Yeah, people want to be heard. And if you're not hearing them out and acknowledging that you've heard them and praising them for the good that they've done, it's a really easy way to make them feel like they don't matter and they'll stop caring. One other thing that I do want to mention, because sometimes it's actually not related to the poor scope of work or the terrible schedule that you have for the job and them not caring about it. It could be that you're not incentivizing them properly. Maybe they've asked for that raise for a long time and you've kind of swept it under the rug and you've always just kind of delayed it. Maybe, you didn't approve their time off request because it was really busy. Or, maybe you continue to put them in the bad truck that out of all the crews and they've complained about it multiple times and they're always having issues with it. Sometimes they're not pushing back about something, but it's not about that thing at all of why they're not pushing back on it. It has something else entirely to do with it. And so it may not be that they're not being heard in other areas, essentially is what I'm saying. So make sure that you're dedicating time to listening to what's going on, to understanding what motivates them, to understanding what their priorities are and what their focus is, and guiding them through that. I think the best leaders are keenly aware of the needs of their people, personally and professionally. They know what their objectives are in life as well as in their career.
Another thing that kind of comes to mind is you're soliciting advice or soliciting, what did I miss, what you just said, and you listen to them. But you can also thank them publicly when they tell you something. Even if it comes up a little bit with attitude, like, chin forward. Well, you said you were going to do this, and by God, you didn't do it. And they're coming at you a little belligerent. You go, you know what? You're right if they are. I appreciate it, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. And you say that in front of people. There's that old adage that you praise in public and you discipline in private. But that praise in public goes a long ways toward buying goodwill.
Okay, so you may be losing your team if turnover is hitting your A players and not just the dead weight.
Yeah.
It is really hard when you lose an A player. And I mean, for a lot of our audience, they may have when we say A player, they're thinking of 1 or 2 people.
Right.
We're talking about that I was just talking to somebody the other day, like the project manager that's been with you, been there, moved up as your right-hand person all the way through, reliable, you can trust them with almost anything. You see them being a general manager at some point, maybe. And then they put a 2 weeks notice in. And there's no warning, there's no negotiation, there's no like, hey boss, like this is what's going on. That's hard.
It can be just totally devastating, just not just the workload, but that sense of, it's okay to say kind of a sense of betrayal, all those emotions that run through your mind. So, what the heck is going on?
And, I think what I most of the time see when this situation happens, they always go on to what is perceived, at least, as a better opportunity. Sometimes you can't control that as a business owner. Like I was talking to somebody that lost a PM to a client, and they were literally going to make double their salary. And he's like, I just couldn't, there's no way I can match it. Like, my margins aren't that good, and much bigger company and all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes you can't control that, but sometimes you can, because it's not always just about the money. The last thing that you want to do is take someone who's extremely capable and not make them feel like they are progressively moving forward and forward. You don't want to be their ceiling, essentially.
I got a path for development, prize at the end.
And with those key people, like I would assume most of those people are going to be direct reports for you. Not always, but in the context of our audience, they're going to be like a direct report where you're like...
I agree with that, but I also think there are A players further down, that uniquely so well suited to their goal. But one thing that usually you can do that will mess you up every time is if your A players who are doing extra and thinking and contributing see you tolerating a C player.
Yeah.
And I mean, we need to be aware that that is as damaging as somebody taking a hammer to the equipment.
Yeah. No, it's at least as damaging, potentially worse.
Your standards are reflected in what you tolerate. Boom.
Yeah.
And basically an A player who's watching you do that is contributing because that's who they are. But they're going to want to go to places where, like you said, they see a path to development. They can see a distinction between me being this good and that guy being not this good. I have a path that he doesn't have.
Yeah.
Not competitive, but that I have a path.
Losing any A players is terrible, but when it's a lower level person, like an entry level position or a technician, it's awful, but it's not as damaging in the sense of like, this was my project manager who's running 5 current projects. That's a lot harder to replace, to find the right fit, all those kinds of stuff. Whereas a technician, yes, it matters. It's just not as damaging. How can you prevent that? If it's a direct report, you've got to be talking to them all the time. I mean, weekly one-on-ones minimum. You've got to be including them into planning, into strategy. You've got to find ways that you can utilize them more, because A players, in my opinion, and that's a really broad definition or vague definition, I guess, for most people, but someone that's truly setting your business up for success, you got to invest as much as you can into them, and you do not want to be their ceiling. And you're only going to know what they want to grow in, what they are capable of, if you're spending time with them.
Well, there's another thing too, and this comes up all the time, is pay them before they ask.
Yes.
If you've got somebody under the market, or under what, it doesn't have to be what your neighbor's paying. If you would pay $10 more an hour to get that guy, and you've already got him or gal,
do it.
Pay the $10.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually have a mutual client who does that with one of his remote workers. He always gives them money before they ask.
Yeah.
But he's also is not an A player. He's an A plus player, and a rare commodity, a diamond in the, whatever you want to call it. But that is one of the strategies: is pay them before they ask.
Yeah, nothing makes them
feel
better than, oh wow, they see me.
Yeah, they're putting their money where their mouths are.
Right.
So.
Okay, you may be losing your team if people stop asking for help or clarification. I think of this one as people just aren't trying to grow. they're not trying to do excellent work. Obviously, you could have the best systems in the world and they don't need to ask for help or clarification because there's videos on how to do it, and there's, SOPs and documentation and QR codes along every side of the process, and you can scan in and watch a video. But that's just not normally the case. If people aren't communicating and asking for support, it just means that they're just there to show up. A lot of times I see this as well as similar to the previous one of like not sharing bad news. You may have established a culture of, hey, you can't ask questions because I'm going to treat you like you're an idiot.
My literal thought was the opposite of that. Not everything rises to this level, but if somebody asks you a question and you respond to it, and it's a significant question, send out a communication. And I mean, it can be at your meeting in the morning, it can be text, it can be however you communicate, your primary, and say, hey, Bill asked this question. Great question. This was my answer. This is what he asked. This is what I answered. Does anybody else have? Good job. Thanks for bringing that up. Where everybody thinks, ooh, I'll be rewarded.
And Martin, this is one of the things that bothers me the most, because what you just said is absolutely right. But I talk to companies probably every single week. And if they wanted to do that, they actually don't have a channel to do that effectively regularly.
So there you go.
They don't have a weekly team meeting. They don't have a morning huddle where they can do that in person. Or they don't have something like Slack or a variety of the workplace communication tools that are out there where they can send that message. If they wanted to do it, they would have to send an email that nobody on the team checks. Or if they want to do that, they'd have to send an iMessage to the group, but they don't have everybody's number saved in their phone. Right?
Yeah.
It's just, you have to, if you are going to lead people and you're going to do something like you just said, you have to have the channel and the means to be able to do that. And nothing's better than having a rhythm, meaning a habit that you fall back to, something that's a routine. Hey, every Monday we do a weekly kickoff with our team. It's 20 minutes. We talk about what the priorities are for the week with our projects, and we share any important information.
Yeah.
That would be one of the important informations. It establishes your culture. It lets you know what you want from your team. It celebrates people that are doing great work. So you've got to do something like that.
Yeah. And that, I think maybe we've done some on this. We need to do something on that in the future, because I do have people say, well, what am I supposed to say in this meeting? And then you have the opposite side of that of, if we have a meeting, it'll go on for 6 hours. And we have talked about it, but we talk about communication being one of the most important things in every aspect of business, internal, external, personal, family, everything. Mm-hmm. And what you just brought up is, well, how are we going to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason your meeting takes 6 hours is because you do it once every 6 months and you don't have an agenda. And so there's too much to cover and it goes in all these different directions, all that kind of stuff. Your meeting wouldn't take 6 hours. It would take 10 minutes if you did it every single day and you had a very rigid structure that you followed,
right.
And it would probably save you, gosh, I can't even imagine how many hours of time it would save you.
Yeah.
Answering questions on off times, going back and doing rework, not, people asking for clarity on the direction of the project or whatever it is, right? You may be losing your team, Martin, if commitments slip without any explanation. I think for probably most people that are having these problems losing their team, commitments are slipping on their end too. And so they probably understand this, but it's when your project manager says, hey, we're going to have the rough end done on Thursday. And then you drive by the job site on Monday and it's not done. And the only reason you found out is because you drove by.
Because you drove by. Yeah.
And that's, in my opinion, one of the telltale signs of that, or one of the reasons of that happening is capacity. Everyone's out of capacity. We're operating above what's possible. And we can do that for a season. We can do that for, a 2-month period if need be, because it's the busy season, whatever. But the reality is a lot of companies are running on overcapacity majority of the time. And reasons for that, we've talked about in so many other episodes, of not charging enough, of not having clear scope of works, of not having a good schedule, of, not hiring well, a variety of things, not planning properly. I think that at the end of the day, that's one aspect, but another aspect is a culture leadership thing as well. You never follow up with things. They see you not following through on commitments, so they don't follow through on commitments.
Yeah, and some of those commitments are with them directly. I was always just in general on leadership. If you are constantly setting goals and never asking about them, or a new process or new system that we're going to implement here, and you're all excited about it, and then I think in another episode I talked about a guy I know who I think I was read it in a book. Didn't know him personally, but he did. What do you do when the boss tells you? Well, he's always off on a new initiative. I used to drop everything and get on it, and then he wouldn't follow up. He said, I'm now at the point where he tells me to do something, I don't do anything. And if I wait and he asks me a week later, well, where is that? I go, oh, okay, I'll get right on it. But I don't do anything because he told me to the first time, because he's just off on one of his squirrel chases.
I'm probably, the culprit number one of this. I get so excited about different things. I'm an early adopter. I'm always looking at like the next thing. I love frameworks and I love to try to implement them. And yeah, sometimes I jump the gun, right? But I think ultimately I at least try to follow up. I'm not going to, I know I've done it before, but I do my best not to start an initiative and then never talking about it again, So I think you have to be careful if that's your personality type like me, where I get really excited about not necessarily shiny object syndrome, but just like, oh man, I'm very optimistic.
What we could.
I'm opportunistic. I see the huge upside, and I don't necessarily count the cost of time, energy, capacity that it would go towards making that a reality. But I think a lot of times that's not necessarily the same thing as the commitments without explanation. Because what I'm talking about is more so initiatives that are, very big company things, right? I think what we're talking about is you haven't been clear on what the objective is on this specific task, and you've delegated it, and then they didn't have the information necessary to actually go do it.
Everybody needs to know who's supposed to do what by when. It goes a little deeper, like how to do it, but who does what by when. And if any of those three things are going to fall through they need to have clear understanding that they need to tell people that.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to communication. It's one thing if they're missing a deadline, and then they hey, we're going to miss this deadline. It's another thing if they miss the deadline and then never say anything.
Yeah.
And you show up on the deadline day and you're like, hey, I thought we were going to be done. Like that's what we had addressed at the beginning of the week. Oh yeah, we just didn't get to it. Like you're losing your team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a sign that you're not communicating effectively or frequently enough, in my opinion.
And sometimes you get the wrong person.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right. Last one, number 6. Martin, you may be losing your team if you're managing tasks instead of leading people.
I love that one.
Yeah. And this is kind of the theme of the episode, right? If you just start with this one and you think about, hey, am I leading my people? And you're honest with yourself about that, I think this will change a lot of the way that you perceive all these other ones. Where do you see this happening the most when you're talking to somebody?
Well, I first kind of define it a little further, like you're delegating how to do something, or delegating, or you're micromanaging how to do something rather than giving somebody a clear picture of this is where we're going. And if you're going to delegate and micromanage all the way, you're never going to become, the freedom, less stress, more free time, more money that we're all aiming for, because you're managing it. But if you give people a vision for what you're trying to accomplish, they always have a North Star that's guiding them, and they can make decisions. If you fail to do that, then you tell them to drive that nail in, and they're standing there waiting to tell you, well, put the next one in. Now and you're over there, they're just going, I could have done all that in 5 minutes and be on to the next task. That also is a display of trust. It's teaching, it's mentoring, all those things when you give people if you're clear about who does what by when, and of course you have the processes and so on, and then turn it over and to do it. And they grow like a weed. And you also find out a lot of times they have better ideas than you do.
Absolutely. I think to build off of what you said, I call it end state. you have to give a clear end state to what things should look like. And an end state is different than a goal or an objective. Try to come up with an example for you, but I use a framework that we call COPE. It stands for context, objective, plan, and end state, right? So if we're talking about a task, give me a task, Martin. Any task in the world.
I want you to process this podcast and get it up on next Thursday.
Perfect. Okay. So the context is that we have a podcast called The Cash Flow Contractor, and we publish our podcast onto multiple outlets like YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. We record podcasts. We use editing tool to edit them, and then we repurpose the content into clips and snippets. There's our context, okay? The objective is to have the episode published without any errors and fully produced onto YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. That's our objective, okay? Then the plan would just be anything that is, it's not exactly how to do it, but it's the critical points. Like, hey, you must double check the files after you've downloaded them to make sure that nothing's corrupt. That would be something that's part of the plan. It's almost like your checklist. You must make sure that everything was properly uploaded to YouTube, to Spotify, and Apple. Okay? What is the end state in this situation? The end state is that we get 1,000 new subscribers from the episode, or we get the episode gets 1,000 views and listens across all platforms. And Martin and Khalil receive emails from listeners thanking them for the episode and with a follow-up question, right? That's the end state. It kind of paints a picture of where we're going, that vision like you talked about.
I've got a client who's a contractor, and it's pretty good. Everybody in his company knows it. End state is the customer is happy, the project worked as planned, and it's profitable.
There you go.
Those are the three things we're doing here.
I love it.
We're not trying to change the world or anything else, but that's the test.
Yep.
Is the customer happy? Does it work properly? And was it profitable?
Yep. The way that I'd say that is that you served clients, you executed the project, and you hit your numbers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
and that is a great place because, I mean, I'm thinking of what he does in conversations we've had recently. He's got a guy who, I'm going to use the term anal, who is so anal about what he does, he'll double the cost of anything. He'll tear a floor out and repour concrete and do all this because perfection is not the end game in this place. Yeah. Customer satisfaction, does it work properly, and was it profitable? That's the end game. Yeah. And so that's where having a context leads to delegation, leads to refinement, because that guy really doesn't get the profitable part.
Yeah.
So
anyway. But if you've given that end state very clearly and it wasn't met, now you can have a conversation. Hey,
yes,
this
and
was the end state.
Yeah, that's my point, and they do.
Yeah, exactly. What oftentimes the owner still is the hub spoke. He's he or she is the hub of the wheel, and everything has to run through them. You really want to delegate some of the outcomes, the responsibilities. You want to give ownership to other people, and it doesn't happen overnight. But as you do that, you're going to start to be able to lead people. I think the biggest hindrance to people actually leading their team is that they're over capacity. I mean, I'm raising my hand here because this is me. My team is going to listen to this episode and they're going to be like, hello, let go of stuff. But reality is, like, you are needed in a leadership role, not in a operations role. And you need to lead accordingly. And if that's not you, if you're better at the operations, find someone who can lead. So that's our 6 things. I'll go through them one more time.
Okay.
You may be losing your team if you're the last to know about problems. Your best people stop pushing back. Turnover is hitting your A players, not just the dead weight in your company. People stop asking for help or clarification. Commitments are slipping without any explanation. And you're managing tasks instead of leading the people on your team. Yeah. So, Martin, it's been fun.
I think it's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at your team and think about those 6 things and maybe you don't have a serious problem yet, but maybe you will have.
Yeah.
Time to be proactive and take some action.
Absolutely. All right. See you, Martin.
Okay, man.
Bye. You made it to the end of the episode, but before you go, if you found yourself thinking about growing your construction business while listening today, I want to share something with you. It's called our 24 Things to Hiring and Training the Perfect Executive Assistant for Your Construction Business. And it's a free guide that we've created. It's not theory, it's what we actually use to help contractors hire the perfect executive assistant. And really, we help you find ways to delegate over 50% of your current workload and get back 20 hours of your time every single week. You didn't start your construction business to just be doing admin work, to be buried in paperwork and endless admin tasks. This is the guide that shows you exactly how to find and train someone who can actually take all that weight off of your shoulders. So this is a real actionable, great PDF that has templates and processes. It's really, really great. And I want you to check it out, even just to get your feedback and how we can make it even more valuable. But I know that you're gonna love it. The link is in the show notes. Please download it. Would love to see how much of an impact it makes on you and your business. Thanks for listening to the full episode. Check out the guide. It's free. No reason to hesitate. No reason to wait. Download it now. And before you go, I just want to ask for your gracious subscription to our podcast. So if you have 2 seconds, it means the world to us. Just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or if you'd like our weekly newsletter delivered to your inbox whenever we release an episode, please subscribe in the show notes. Every week, we're talking about real strategies on how you can grow and build a profitable construction business that runs without you, so you can have less stress, more time, and more money. Click subscribe wherever you listen to the show, and thank you again for checking out the Cashflow Contractor. See you on the next episode.